Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Pokémon Film Perspectives, and today we're going to be discussing the 21st animated film to be released as part of the Pokémon franchise, I Choose You. Now, believe it or not, I did actually hear about this movie prior to buying it. However, it was one that I was a little cautious of. I had heard the premise of the movie was that it was, well, a reboot. Yeah. This movie is a reboot. It basically takes the story all the way back to the beginning of the first Pokémon series. Albeit the direction it takes things is a little different from where the anime goes. Regardless, though, this movie is supposed to focus on Ash right at the beginning of his journey. And, like I said, this film is not meant to be in any way associated with the then-current anime that was on the air at the time, Sun and Moon. So whatever happened with the Ash in the long-standing anime had nothing to do with what was going on with Ash in the movie. So both continuities were now completely separate. However, but like I said, I was a little cautious of this movie because reboots are tricky, and to basically just tell your audience, we're going all the way back to the beginning and expecting them to just kind of get right back into Ash's journey like it was no big deal, that's a bit of a tall order when you have an audience that has been spanning at least 2 decades. Obviously, it did make me curious about how they were going to handle this. But the thing is, I did hear plenty of good things about this movie, and, well, while it was on my radar for a while, I never fully gave it a shot until I started actively collecting the Pokemon movies, and I finally decided to start rounding out my collection by getting the remaining animated films. In this case, the reboot movies, as we're going to call it, because yeah, from this point on, the remaining movies, with one exception, all take place in the reboot timeline. Like I said, what happens to Ash in these films has nothing to do with what's going on with Ash in the anime at the time. So, ultimately, it's a separate continuity. Different Ash, different adventure, different experiences, yada yada yada. But the thing is, does it still hold up on its own? Well, let's take a look at this film and find out. And, of course, in order to do that, we gotta get through a long-ass plot summary. Now, like I said, since this film is a reboot, the beginning of the movie actually opens with Ash on as he's beginning his Pokemon journey. And for the most part, the prologue for the film is basically note for note what happens in the beginning of the anime. Ash oversleeps on his 10th birthday, rushes to Professor Oak's lab to get one of his starter Pokemon, finds that all the other Pokemon have been taken, and all that's left is a rambunctious Pikachu that doesn't even want to listen to Ash, and every time he tries picking it up, it shocks him. Regardless, he takes the Pikachu. He and Pikachu don't really see eye to eye at first, as Ash is trying to force it while Pikachu is just stubborn. However, in the midst of their squabbling, they end up getting the attention of a flock of Spearow, who end up attacking the pair, specifically Pikachu in this case. The two of them run. Eventually, the Spearow start ganging up on them. Ash tries defending Pikachu with his body. Pikachu sees how much Ash is doing to try and protect it, and so Pikachu in turn protects Ash. As in the middle of a lightning storm, it just jumps up to Ash and unleashes a thunderbolt so grand it takes out the Spearow and in turn knocks out Ash. Of course, there are some differences between the original anime. I think there was a Fearow in the first episode of the anime, but don't quote me on that. And likewise, there's no Misty this time around for whose bike they end up stealing. But for the most part, things do go the way they did in the first episode of the anime, complete with Ash and Pikachu seeing Ho-Oh flying off in the distance. But here in turn is where we get to a true point of divergence, besides, a lack of Misty. Because as Ho-Oh flies away, one of its feathers ends up floating down into Ash's hand. And it's a beautiful feather. It's glistening with rainbow light, and Ash basically looks at this feather, and he and Pikachu basically promise that they'll see Ho-Oh again one day. And from there, the film just kind of fast-forwards through Ash's Pokemon journey, as we see Ash and Pikachu just traveling around, doing their own thing, accompanied with a cover of the original Pokemon anime theme, which is nice. I love it. Even in the sequence, we actually see him catch. Hold on one second, I'm blanking on the name. We see him catch a Caterpie. I hate that I forgot that name. I know that name too. But basically it's just Ash going through his Pokemon journey, just seeing the sights, enjoying his time with his Pokemon, making friends, winning battles, of course winning gym battles and winning badges so that he can eventually enter the Pokemon League and eventually lose because Ash at this time was set to lose until only a few years ago. So hey, you know what that is. But however, where things begin picking up is that we see Ash at a Pokemon Center in the middle of the forest, and we see that his mom has been trying to reach him for quite some time, as, She's worried about her son, so she wants to check in on him. And so as Ash and his mom, and so as Ash is getting chewed out by his mom over the phone, a trainer ends up running into the the Pokemon Center with an injured Pokemon. And when Nurse Joy asks what happened to this guy's Pokemon, he reveals that he encountered a legendary Pokemon, Entei. Yeah, Entei, out of nowhere. And apparently he decided he wanted to challenge Entei and try to catch it. And it went as well as you think it would. Legendary Pokemon, regular Pokemon. But, however, a bunch of other trainers, Ash included, end up overhearing this guy talking about Entei, and, well, trainers are a tenacious breed, and they basically all decided they want to go out and capture Entei. And so all of these trainers, again, including Ash, end up racing off to go and face Entei. And sure enough, Ash does seem to find Entei right there in the middle of the forest and is getting ready to face him, only to find that he's not the only trainer to reach Entei, as two other trainers, a guy and a girl, end up arriving with their Pokemon intent on catching Entei. And the girl actually has a Piplup, and yeah, she's from the Sinnoh region, and the guy has a Lucario. Regardless, though, the three trainers do end up trying to fight Entei, and once again, it goes the way you would expect it to. Entei actually overpowers their Pokemon and eventually escapes. As such, the girl, who we learn here is named Verity, ends up chewing Ash out because she wants to blame him for all this, and Ash of course fires back, and it eventually results in the two of them butting heads enough that Verity ends up challenging Ash to a Pokemon battle, which Ash happily accepts, with the pair of them even offering the guy, who we learned is named Sorrel, if he wants to battle whoever the winner is. But Sorrel passes as he tells Ash and Verity that they might need to take cover soon because he can tell the wind is picking up, which means it's going to rain soon. So he thinks again, best to cover up. Regardless, Ash and Verity have their Pokemon battle, but in the midst of the battle, they end up one of their attacks ends up hitting what looks like a pile of rocks, which in reality is an Onix, and it's pissed. As such, it ends up zeroing in on the trainers, and so Ash and Verity just make a run for it with Onix hot on their tail, and eventually the chase ends up leading the duo into a gorge with them riding on Onix's back, but eventually they are able to calm Onix down as Ash rushes in front of Onix and tries using his body to halt it, while Verity has her Piplup use Whirlpool to try and halt Onix in order for it to actually hear Ash pleading with it to calm down. And it does seem to work, as Onix does leave and drops Verity, Piplup, and Pikachu off, and Verity is impressed that Ash just jumped in, ready to take the full brunt of whatever Onix had to offer. But no sooner do they start talking than it does start raining, and thus Ash and Verity take their Pokemon and try to find cover. However, they're not the only ones out in the rain, as in the middle of the rain, they find a Charmander. And yeah, this is part of where the anime does sort of adapt episodes from the original anime. It's like I said, while this film is not note to note the same as the anime, it does share a few things in common, as evident by the prologue, with this being one of them, albeit this one does have a much deeper impact on the plot of the movie. As Ash and Verity find Charmander, who's just kind of sitting in the rain, just seemingly waiting for someone. And apparently the waiting pays off, as Charmander happily runs up to someone who's walking up. And this guy, and we see that as we see the Charmander run up to this guy and start hugging this guy's leg, only for the guy to just kick Charmander off and pretty much tell it to piss off. So, yeah, this is Ash's rival for the movie. His name is Cross. Yes, that is his actual name. His hair even comes down to a cross. And he is your local Dick Waffle for the evening, as he basically sees the only true strength of being a trainer being, well, strength itself. You need to be strong in order to survive, and if you're not strong, you're weak. And okay, no duh. But what he means is you can't be soft if you want to make it as a trainer. And that's the reason he ditched Charmander. He thought Charmander was too soft, and that ultimately, no matter how much training Charmander went through, he would always be weak. So he basically wanted to ditch Charmander and find a stronger fire type. However, Charmander was exceedingly loyal, and so even after he ditched Charmander, Charmander found him. And so, to try and keep Charmander from following him, he told Charmander to wait there, where Ash and Verity found it, and, well, Charmander listened to its owner. And so, yeah, Ash and Verity are a little pissed at Cross, but Cross doesn't really give a shit, especially when he does have another strong Pokemon on his standby that's willing to act as his enforcer, a wolf-like Pokemon called Lycanroc, and he does actually look badass, I'll give it credit, although the fact that it belongs to Cross does immediately cause it to lose some points. Regardless, though, Regardless, though, Cross pretty much tells Ash and Verity to piss off as he and his Lycanroc leave, but Ash and Verity can't actually chase after him and give him the business because, unfortunately, Charmander isn't doing so well. It's a Fire-type Pokemon in the middle of the rain, and Charmander has that little fire at the end of its tail, and unfortunately that fire is starting to die out, and if it goes out... As such, Ash and Verity take Charmander and run into a cave, and coincidence of coincidences, that's where they run to Sorrel, who at first yells at Ash and Verity for leaving Charmander out in the rain, but they do confirm that they only found Charmander and they're trying to heal it. Thankfully, Sorrel is able to help Charmander get back to health, as it turns out he's been studying Pokémon and does know how to properly care for and heal them. And as such, he's able to give Charmander some medicine, and it does seem to be recuperating rather well. As such, the three trainers decide to just stay in the cave for the night, and they're not the only ones. As Entei comes back on the scene with a gaggle of other wild Pokemon, as they all decide to take cover in the cave themselves, and even find their own little alcove not that far from where Ash and Co. are. So, hey, everyone's just settled in, and everyone's ready to just talk and chat and do their own thing. From there, Ash and Co. just begin talking. They just share notes, experiences, talk about what they want. And Sorrel reveals that he wants to become a Pokemon professor one day. He notes that Verity is a little far from home because she's clearly from the Sinnoh region. Yeah, whatever town she was from is from Sinnoh, so don't ask me to remember it. I don't. However, as the group are talking, the topic of Entei comes up, and Sorrel mentions that there's a legend connected to Entei, that apparently Entei came from the legendary Pokemon Ho-Oh. And basically the legend goes that once upon a time, in an ancient city, there was a large tower that was supposed to allow humans to actually contact Ho-Oh and communicate with it. However, during a lightning storm, the tower burned down, and while the fire was eventually put out, 3 unnamed Pokemon were unfortunately perished in the fire. As such, Ho-Oh used its power to revive these Pokemon, imbuing them with the elements of that basically destroyed the tower, which in this case were Suicune, Entei, and Raikou, each of them embodying either the fire that burned down the tower, the water that put out the fire, or just a lightning strike that took the tower out. And while Sorrel is basically telling this story to Ash and Verity, he's actually showing images, and he actually shows Ho-Oh, which Ash recognizes Ho-Oh and does tell the pair about the feather that he found. And Sorrel actually is shocked by this because it turns out there is a legend connected to that feather, believe it or not. As apparently Ho-Oh doesn't really communicate with humans that often. It's not like it's antisocial or anything, it's just... it doesn't talk to humans. However, the few times that it does talk to humans, every once in a while, it will actually give a human that it likes a feather. With the feather being called the Rainbow Wing. And the whole idea is that whoever holds the Rainbow Wing is supposed to be named as the Rainbow Hero, and using the wing, they're supposed to seek out Ho-Oh. Which Ash hears this and he's a bit astonished by it. But as Sorrel is talking about this, Entei actually overhears the conversation and seems to take note of it. While eventually he just kind of brushes it off and tries to get some sleep, something in Entei's shadow begins stirring. A Pokemon, which, let me see if I can get a picture of this thing. This little thing this thing. It seems to be made of shadows, and that evening while everyone is sleeping, the Pokemon seems to slip into Ash's shadow, and even begins seeming to whisper something into Ash's ear. Something that causes Ash to stir, and it causes this Pokemon to just seep back into his shadow. It's strange and mysterious. But regardless, the next day, Ash and Co. wake up, and sure enough, when everyone leaves the cave, the Rainbow Wing ends up reacting to a rainbow that's come in the sky from the rain, and sure enough, when Ash points it towards one end of the rainbow, it starts shining brightly. And as such, Ash and Co. realize that this thing is trying to direct them to where they need to go in order to find a Ho-Oh. With Sorrel confirming that the end of that rainbow is somewhere in a place called the Risen Mountains. Or, hold on one second, I'm going to confirm. The Risen Mountain Range, sorry. And, well, Ash and Co. decide to make it their duty to basically go to the Risen Mountain Range and meet Ho-Oh, as Ash wants to challenge Ho-Oh to a battle, Verity wants to see Ho-Oh in action, and since Sorrel is already planning to, become a Pokemon professor, he says he wants to study legendary Pokemon, and, well, Ho-Oh's a legendary Pokemon, so he wants to go meet Ho-Oh, and he wants to confirm if this legend is true. Not only that, though, but Ash gets a new friend. When morning comes, Charmander is back to perfect health, and with Ash realizing that Cross is never going to accept Charmander, Ash basically asks Charmander if it wants to come with him, and Charmander happily accepts. And so Ash has a new friend to add to his team. From there, once again, the film follows Ash and Co. as they're just traveling, doing their own thing. We see I forgot its name again. God dang it. Caterpie. I was thinking Centipede for whatever reason. I don't like that. That's a Steven Universe name. Whatever. We have Caterpie end up evolving into a Metapod as it battles with a wild Pokemon. And then likewise, when Ash and Co. stop at a town and Ash challenges a random trainer to a Pokemon battle, Charmander takes part, and guess what? Charmander evolves into Charmeleon. So hey, things are going well for Ash. However, as the group is taking a pit stop at another Pokemon Center, we see that Sorrel is continuing to do research on the Rainbow Hero legend. And it turns out there's more to the legend than what Sorrel told everybody. As according to the legend, for every bright shadow that Ho-Oh cast, there was darkness that appeared. And unfortunately, that darkness can have an effect on the Rainbow Wing. As according to the legend, if a dark heart comes into contact with the Rainbow Ring, then the color will be drained out of it, and all that will be left is shadow. And as Sorrel is telling this portion of the legend to Ash and Verity, someone seems to be listening in from behind a corner. From there we cut to, I'm guessing, I think the next day, I suppose, around evening, as we see that Ash is once again challenging random trainers to Pokemon battles, and who should show up but Cross, who basically just wants to battle with Ash and once again prove that Ash is a weakling. And as such, Ash and Cross end up pulling out their respective fire types, with Ash calling out Charmeleon, who's actually surprised to see Cross, and then likewise Cross ends up pulling out his own fire Pokemon, Incineroar. And from there, the two of them end up battling. And while in the beginning of the battle, Ash seems to be doing well with Charmeleon, unfortunately, Incineroar quickly turns the tide of battle, as it manages to retain it. As part of its whole gimmick is that when Incineroar takes enough damage, he's able to get a boost in strength, and Cross uses that to his advantage to have Incineroar pretty much wipe the floor with Charmeleon. And I'm not even kidding. It's basically a beatdown. It's a one-sided beatdown. Charmeleon does not stand a chance, as Incineroar basically just tells him to eat dirt and like it. And by the end, Charmeleon is, well, I'm gonna say Charmeleon faints, but, well, he got pile-drived right through a wall. That's not fainting. That is a concussion waiting to happen. However, as Ash goes to tend to Charmeleon, Cross decides to pour some salt in the wound as he calls Ash weak, soft, and the worst trainer he's ever seen. And when Ash hears this, it does sincerely get to him, and it pisses him off that someone like Cross can have won with his own little mindset. Regardless, Ash does take Charmeleon to a Pokemon Center, where Charmeleon is able to heal up, but when Ash takes Charmeleon's Pokeball back, well, what Cross said is just getting to him, and While Sorrel and Verity do try to calm Ash down and tell him that he shouldn't have to deal with that he shouldn't really be focusing on that, especially since he should just take this anger and internalize it to make himself stronger. Well, unfortunately, Ash is taking it more personally, as he doesn't like the idea of someone like Cross winning. And then Ash says something a bit offhand. He probably could have won the battle if Pikachu was in there. Which Verity and Sorrel immediately call Ash out on, because if Charmeleon heard that, he'd be heartbroken. As such, Ash of course realizes it, but he gets defensive and ends up storming off and abandoning his friends, with Pikachu following behind. As such, Ash is once more frustrated and asks Pikachu if he's in the wrong, and while Pikachu doesn't say anything, its demeanor does seem to show that it did agree with Sorrel and Verity, and basically Ash thinks that Pikachu's against him too, and once more offhand, he mutters to himself, he should have gotten a Bulbasaur or a Squirtle as a starter. Which, yeah, hearing that does piss Pikachu off, and so as Ash keeps storming off, Pikachu stops following him. And from there, Ash actually starts yelling at everyone, saying, fine, everyone's abandoning me, I'm wrong, and in his anger, he ends up just kind of crouching by a tree, and he even pulls out the Rainbow Wing, wondering how he's supposed to be the Rainbow Hero or whatever. But it's clear that his convictions are not as strong as they used to be. And we see that shadowy Pokemon from earlier take advantage of this, because as Ash crouches down onto the ground, this Pokemon does something. It basically hits Ash with something that causes Ash to pass out, and when he falls, the rainbow ring seems to lose its color. From there, Ash awakens in a dreary world. A world completely of gray and muted colors. And in this world, Pokemon aren't a thing. Ash is just a regular student going to school. His friend Sorrel and Verity are his classmates that he hangs out with. But there are no sign of Pokemon. Although clearly some bit of reality is seeping through, because the few bits of color that Ash does witness are the few Pokemon that manage to seep into the illusion, as he sees phantom images of Pikachu chasing him around. He briefly sees an image of Ho-Oh in the sky before it's replaced by a jet plane, and when Ash is on this roof of his school thinking about traveling out into the world, he thinks about how when he's out there traveling, how he'll have his best bud by his side. And when Verity and Sorrel ask him who his best bud is, he's like, "Hey, you even have to ask?" And he briefly remembers Pikachu, and even sees him in the illusion, even if he can't remember him. From there, the dream world basically starts to break down as Ash chases after the image of Pikachu, and his memories of Pikachu come back until finally, as everything quite literally falls apart, Ash finally manages to reach the illusion, and it becomes solid as Ash finally remembers everything. And as he ends up taking a dive bomb into the ground because falling dream, Ash wakes up back in the real world with Verity, Sorrel, and Pikachu there watching him, and Ash basically just pulls Pikachu in for a hug and just starts apologizing to hell and back because what he said was wrong. He was not thinking, and he cares about Pikachu more than anything. And it turns out that Ash having this revelation was enough to fix the rainbow wing, as it's now fully colored again. As such, Ash and Co. are happy to talk with are happy that Ash is okay, though Ash does get chewed up by Verity because he ran off without them. And Ash in turn does share his dream with the duo, which in turn does give us a bit of backstory on Sorrel, which I'll get to when I get to the reasons why I like this movie. However, in the midst of all this, that shadowy Pokemon from earlier actually seeps out of Ash's shadow, and everybody ends up seeing it, or at least a glimpse of it, because once everyone sees it, well, Pikachu tries attacking it even although when Pikachu tries, this Pokemon sees back in Ash's shadow, and this is incorporeal. But when Pikachu shoots an electric shock at the tree that Ash's shadow was cast on, it sends an electric shock through the forest, which in turn wakes up a gaggle of primates. And they ultimately, Ash and Co. are able to shake the primates off because Ash ends up calling out Metapod and is able to tie them up. But in the midst of the battle, Metapod evolves into Butterfree, and Butterfree is ultimately able to put the primates to sleep using its sleeping powder. From there, Ash and Co. continue on their... Ash and Co. are basically good again as they decide to once more go to the Raizen Mountain Range so they can find Ho-Oh, and it's here where we get to the portion of the movie that adapts Goodbye Butterfree, as Butterfree ends up falling in love with a pink Butterfree, and, well, Ash once again says goodbye in a rather tearful moment, which would be a lot less tearful if it wasn't for the fact that this scene kind of preceded Ash having that whole nightmare about losing his friends and basically chasing them to try and apologize and get them back. It's a little hard is what I'm saying. Regardless, after Ash and Butterfree have their tearful farewell, Ash and Co. once more make their way to the Raizen Mountain Range, and they actually end up running into another unexpected guest. In this case, another Pokemon professor by the name of Bonji, whom Sorrel actually recognizes because it turns out this was the guy that wrote down the findings about the Rainbow Hero legend. His picture was even in the book that Sorrel was studying back at that Pokemon Center. And as such, he kind of starts following Ash and Co. around, and as such, they end up running into... along the way, they end up running into more herds of Pokemon that all seem to be following the group to the Raizen Mountain Range. And it's here where we learn a bit more about the legend, and subsequently about the shadowy Pokemon that's been following Ash around. It turns out this Pokemon is a rare Pokemon called Marshadow, and it's sort of tied to the legend of the Rainbow Hero. Basically, I don't really know how to describe Marshadow. I would say that Marshadow is supposed to represent the heart of Shadow that's supposed to seep into the light when things go wrong, but the way that Bonji describes it, it's like Marshadow is less the darkness and more the thing that heals the darkness. It's like it's an antibody that keeps the darkness at bay. Kind of. I don't know. Although, if that is true, it would explain why Marshadow put Ash into that nightmare earlier, as Ash was clearly starting to falter, and well, his mood was having an effect on the rainbow wing. So odds are maybe Marshadow put Ash into that dream world to basically give him time to cool down and remember what it was that he held so dear about being a Pokemon trainer. So you could argue that maybe Marshadow is trying to help Ash, but I don't know. Bonji describes Marshadow as supposedly being a guy but again, I don't really know why, and I'll explain more when we get further into the plot summary. The point is, Ash and Co now have a name to go with the face, but then there's also the matter of all these Pokemon, and apparently part of the reason why they're all going to where Ash and Co are going is because they also all want to meet Ho-Oh and receive Ho-Oh's blessings and gifts and power and all that crap. As such, Ash and Co do end up finally reaching the Raizen mountain range, and the Rainbow Wing is able to direct Ash and Co to where to place it, as it shoots a light out to this one alcove which begins exuding light, and basically a legend has it that says that Ash is to put the Rainbow Wing at the top of this rainbow rock, so to speak, and that in turn will summon Ho-Oh. As such, the group manages to make it to the top of the rock formation, and Ash is getting ready to put the Rainbow Wing in place, only for the asshat that is Cross to show up and demands that Ash hand over the Rainbow Wing because, in his own words, only the strongest trainer can meet Ho-Oh. Of course, Ash and Co think that he's full of crap, and so Ash and Cross once more get into a Pokemon battle, with Ash once again pulling out Charmeleon, while Cross ends up pulling out Incineroar. And again, in the beginning of the battle, things seem to be going how they did in the first battle, as Incineroar seems to be almost overpowering Charmeleon, only for Charmeleon to get a second wind and evolve into Charizard. And from there, Charizard it's a more even playing field, as Charizard begins countering Incineroar blow for blow, until eventually Charizard actually wipes the floor with Incineroar and wins the battle. As such, Ash at this point was getting ready to just walk by Cross and place the Rainbow Wing in place, only for Cross to yell at Ash that he saw Ho-Oh too. Yeah, apparently, like Ash, Cross also got a glimpse of Ho-Oh. I don't know if it was on the same day as Ash, but he saw Ho-Oh at some point. But unlike Ash, he never got a Rainbow Wing. And, well, Cross didn't like that. After all, his whole gimmick is that he has to prove he's the strongest. He wants to be powerful, and yet Ho-Oh just seemed to snub him. As such, part of the whole reason he wants to confront Ho-Oh isn't because he wants to make friends with Ho-Oh, but because he wants to basically tell it, screw you, I'm strong. He wants to basically shove his strength in Ho-Oh's face and basically go, ha ha ha, don't you regret not picking me? Don't you regret it? And it pisses him off that someone like Ash was chosen over him. But to counter Cross's whole mindset of strength is the only thing that matters, Ash talks about how the reason why he wants to fight and train Pokemon, because he wants to be their friends. He wants to be friends with all of them. And that's part of why he wants to battle Ho-Oh. He wants to be friends with Ho-Oh. And that's why that's what pushes Ash to keep going. Cross, however, does not accept this answer, as he actually rushes up to Ash, and after a struggle, he manages to get the Rainbow Wing out of Ash's hand and then make a run for the Rainbow Rock, with his Lycan Rock blocking Ash and Co from following after. Unfortunately, though, as Cross is climbing the Rainbow Rock, the Rainbow Wing starts losing its luster, and so as Cross ends up putting the Rainbow Wing right at the top of the rock, well, it's not emitting a rainbow anymore. It's emitting shadow, and that shadow begins immediately taking effect across the area as the entire plateau is shrouded in darkness and the sky goes black. So, you fucked up, Cross. You fucked up bad, kid. And unfortunately, that's where Marshadow comes back in. When Ash and Cross had their Pokemon battle, Marshadow stepped out of Ash's shadow and basically was just on the sidelines as an unofficial referee. But the instant that Cross did what he did, Marshadow basically went to go do its job, so to speak, as it went to the top of the Rainbow Rock and grabbed at the Rainbow Wing, supposedly to seal the dark and make things better, as Bonji put it. But But this is when Marshadow starts getting aggressive, as it directly attacks Cross, and when Cross tries attacking Marshadow, Marshadow ends up using the power imbued in it from the corrupted Rainbow Wing, and it ends up taking control of his Lycanroc, and in turn it spreads that energy to all the Pokemon surrounding the area, and directs their attention back right directly at Ash and Co. Yeah, this is where I'm questioning what Marshadow's motives are. Like, is it actually supposed to be sealing the darkness? Is it actually supposed to be keeping the balance? Or is it just straight up evil? Was it just sitting on standby waiting for Ash to lose his guard? In which case, why did it put Ash in the nightmare? Why did it allow Ash to be taught a lesson? Or is this his attempt to try and control the dark by basically using up the dark energy from the Rainbow Wing until eventually it'll be just withered out? I have no idea. I'm willing if it is true that he's supposed to be still in the dark, I'm gonna assume that maybe it's that one based on events that happen later in the scene, but I don't know. This one is just him being straight up aggressive and outright just attacking the group. And I understand part of the whole idea is that maybe he has to use up the power. Maybe the darkness is kind of corrupting Marshadow as well, or not. I don't know. I don't really get this scene. It doesn't make sense to me. But regardless, Marshadow takes control of all the wild Pokemon in the area and has them attack Ash and Co. Thankfully, Ash and his friends are able to use their Pokemon to fend them off, and ultimately they realize that if they want to stop all this, they need to get the Rainbow Wing away from Marshadow. As such, Ash has to try and rush his way through all these Pokemon to try and get to Marshadow, while his friends cover him with their Pokemon. Even Cross at this point realizes how badly he effed up, and even he tries defending Ash, as he actually goes to Lycanroc, and while Lycanroc is outright attacking him, well, it turns out Cross is able to get through to this thing, as while his whole thing is strength means everything, apparently he and Lycanroc were two peas in a pod, because the first time they crossed paths, Lycanroc did attack him and bite him, and apparently they formed a bond of mutual respect for each other because of that. And when the Cross reminds Lycanroc of that connection, it is able to snap Lycanroc out to the point where it actually gives its trainer a little lick on the cheek. Look, okay, Cross may be an absolute asshole who earns my ire in every sense, but I don't know. I like it when that's sweet. Okay, it's sweet. Still hate this prick, but that's sweet. Regardless, with Lycanroc back on his side, Cross does help out, and eventually Ash does end up confronting Marshadow. And as such, Ash has Pikachu go out and fight Marshadow, which does lead to a genuinely epic Pokemon battle between Marshadow and Pikachu. But unfortunately, though, the wild Pokemon are zeroing in on the area, and while Pikachu and Marshadow do end up trading enough blows with each other, unfortunately, by the end of it, Pikachu sustains too much damage. Don't get me wrong, Pikachu's attacks did manage to cause Marshadow to falter, as by the end of the battle, even Marshadow can't stand up straight and eventually just falls onto one knee in order to regain its faculties. But unfortunately, the Pikachu sustained too much damage, and well, like I said, a bevy of mind-controlled wild Pokemon are descending on the scene. As such, Ash takes Pikachu, and unfortunately he and Pikachu are cornered on a cliff, and Ash tries imploring Pikachu to get into its Pokeball, because while Pikachu may not like it, it'll be safe in there, and Ash will basically just cover him out here. And it does mirror the scene at the beginning of the movie where Ash confronted the Spearow, with Ash even quoting verbatim what happened there about how he's Ash Ketchum and Pallet Town, and that they don't know who they're messing with, yada yada yada. And like in the beginning, Pikachu does try to defend Ash by jumping over his shoulder to try and deliver a coup de grace blow, but Pikachu's too weak. It can't summon the lightning. As such, Ash does cover Pikachu, and the two of them end up taking a full blast of all these Pokemon that Marshadow is controlling, and basically lying there on the ground, Ash just asks Pikachu why it won't go in its Pokeball. And Ash seems to hear Pikachu talk. And it says, "Because I always want to be with you." So, well, with that in mind, Ash does finally get Pikachu to go into its Pokeball, as he takes the full brunt of the attacks from all the wild Pokemon. And Pikachu survives. It was, like Ash said, it was safe in its Pokeball. But when it comes out of its Pokeball, it finds that Ash's cap has been blown off his head. And when Pikachu goes to find Ash, he's fading away. Quite literally, he's fading away. And Pikachu tries running up to his partner, and, well, by the time Pikachu reaches him, he's gone. Just gone. And justifiably, Pikachu doesn't take it well. As Pikachu lets out a massive cry, accompanied by a massive bolt of electricity that is so great, it actually encompasses the area and actually banishes the darkness, even to Marshadow's shock. But what's done is done. Ash seems to die as Pikachu cries as it holds Ash's hat. But while this is a touching moment, you gotta remember this is a Pokemon movie. They're not gonna kill off Ash. And sure enough, we do see that Ash is still around, so to speak, but he is a bit out of phase with the world, as he's still on the plateau, but from his perspective, there's no one there. But he can sense Pikachu, and Pikachu can sense him. And it turns out, as Ash begins going towards Pikachu, a strange light appears back in the real world, which Pikachu which Pikachu sees and can hear Ash inside from. And as Ash begins regaining more of his self, the light in his own side of things is coming back. When Pikachu realizes that Ash is getting closer, Pikachu actually jumps right into the light and right into Ash's arms, and it's the sweetest thing as Ash comes running out. And sure enough, Ash is back to normal. He's got his hat back. He's reunited with all his friends, and it's the sweetest gosh darn thing I've seen. And yeah, in the midst of all this, turns out Marshadow was able to burn up the Rainbow Wing. But as Ash is reunited with Pikachu and Marshadow's hold on to the wild Pokemon is gone, the Rainbow Wing reforms in Ash's hand. Good as new. Completely free of corruption. And as such, with the danger past, Ash goes back up to the Rainbow Rock, which has been purged of the darkness, and he places the Rainbow Wing in place, and sure enough, that's when Ho-Oh comes in, and it manages to wash everybody in the area in its aura, which in turn heals everyone, makes them better, imbues them with strength, yada yada yada. It's nice stuff. And as such, as Ho-Oh ends up resting on the Rainbow Rock, Ash challenges Ho-Oh to a Pokemon battle, which it seems to agree to, as, while it never actually calls out to Ash, it does seem to nod, saying, okay, sure, as well, it flies above the area, gets in position, Ash gets Pikachu ready, and so, Ash and Ho-Oh have themselves a little Pokemon battle, and it's actually pretty damn cool, though we don't end up seeing who wins. No, I'm not even kidding. We see the battle begin, the camera pans away as Pikachu and Ho-Oh are exchanging blows, and the next time we see Ash and Co, it's evening, as Ash is bringing Pikachu to a Pokemon Center after the battle is over. They never say who won, but it was apparently a memorable battle. As such, Cross ends up parting from the group as he claims he wants to get stronger on his own, that one day he will fight Ash, and that Ash better not lose till they face again. Ash and Co end up finally parting ways because, well, everyone's got to go on their own path. Everyone has to go on their own path. Verity wants to go home. Sorrel wants to look for Zapdos, Articuno, and Moltres, and likewise, Ash wants to become the world's greatest Pokemon master. And as for Bonji, well, he has his own. As for Bonji, he wants to go and seek out the next Rainbow Hero because he wants to still study Ho-Oh, and he's more excited than anything to find out who will be the next one. And as such, that's kind of where the film ends, as Ash once more rushes off to continue his Pokemon journey, excited to see what he'll meet next. So it's nice stuff. Also, Team Rocket was in this movie. Yeah, no, I'm just saying that, but they were indeed in this movie. Despite this film being a reboot, they were still hanging around in the background. The first time we saw them was at the Pokemon Center in the forest, with them having a wanted poster set up right there, and the instant they heard that Entei was around, they decided to go out and chase Entei. And for their troubles, they wound up getting blasted off by Onyx. After that, they wound up following after Ash and Co. because they heard they were going after Ho and thought, hey, we couldn't get Entei, let's get Ho-Oh. And the next time we see them, they're assaulted by the Primeapes that Butterfree put to sleep. And then likewise, they got blasted off again. Or likewise, after that, we saw them climbing the mountains chasing after Ash and Co. before they basically took a tumble and fell off. And after that, the last we see of them is them once again following Ash as he's going on his journey, and they once more have their they're once more in their Meowth balloon. And they finally got Wobbuffet off screen, so hey, that's a plus. But also, on top of that, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention this too. The end credits, I think, is really nice because the ending song, I Choose You, is really nice and sweet. And likewise, we actually get a montage of all of Ash's traveling companions from throughout the anime, specifically through the original Pokemon to XY. And it's actually nice. It's a nice little reflection, even for a reboot. It's really cool. I dig it. I dig it. We even check in with Verity and Sorrel as we see them going on their own journeys. With Verity going back to the Sinnoh region, and Sorrel actually managing to track down the legendary birds. It's nice. I like it. Sweet stuff. So, yeah, that was I Choose You. My thoughts on this film. I'm going to get to the flaws first, and I want to preface this and I'm only doing this because I need to get them out of the way before I get to what I liked about the movie. And trust me, I'll explain why when I get to why I like the movie. For me, I think the biggest flaw, the two biggest flaws in this film are, one, Marshadow as the quote-unquote antagonist, and two, oddly enough, the plot. Now, like I said, Marshadow as the antagonist confuses me. Because the thing is, this thing seems to be following Ash around, and its motives from the get-go are made unclear. Because it's a shadowy Pokemon that seems interested in Ash because he has the Rainbow Wing. But the thing is, we never really learn what Marshadow's end goal is. We think that maybe it's trying to corrupt Ash for some reason in order to corrupt the Rainbow Wing, but when they met with Bonji later, he explained that Marshadow was supposed to be was supposed to be Ash's guide. That it, alongside the three legendary Pokemon, Entei, Suicune, and Raikou, who, yes, Ash and Co. did end up running into Suicune and Raikou across their journey, I just didn't mention it in the plot summary, were all supposed to be there to basically test Ash and see if he truly had the right stuff to be the Rainbow Hero. But the thing is, Marshadow's role in all that was supposed that he was supposed to seal up the darkness. That once if darkness ever reared its head and affected the Rainbow Wing, then it would swoop in, seal the darkness, and make things right. And sadly, that's not what I see in this film. Sort of. The closest we get to that was when Ash was starting to lose his convictions after being beaten by Cross in their first battle. Because, like I said, Marshadow put Ash into the dream, and in that dream, Ash was able to remember why he truly cared about Pokemon, why he truly cared about being a Pokemon master, and ultimately he may be soft, but being soft doesn't make you weak. And that in turn allowed Ash to basically get over himself and restored color to the Rainbow Wing. But then likewise, we have the climax of the movie where Marshadow just goes full supervillain mode as Cross corrupts the Rainbow Wing, and then it swoops in to quote-unquote contain it. And I don't really understand why it turns all hostile at that point. I suppose you could argue that Marshadow needed to use up the energy from the corrupted Rainbow Wing, because this thing was actively corrupting the spot where Ash and Co. were supposed to meet Ho-Oh, and that darkness was affecting the area around them. So you could argue that maybe that if Marshadow didn't do what it did, the corruption would have gone even further. So basically Marshadow had to take on the corruption itself, and then had to basically burn up the power until the Rainbow Wing would basically just fall apart, and thus the true Chosen One would be able to get it back, because Ash clearly proved that even when he falters, he's able to regain his strength. So you could argue that maybe Marshadow was doing everything it was doing because it needed to funnel out the power. But if that's the case, why did it turn all the Pokemon in the area against the group? Maybe you could argue it's because it had to escalate. Because Cross went after Marshadow, and Marshadow knocked him aside, and so Marshadow had to go on the offensive because Cross was a dimwit who didn't know what the word no meant. And so because of that, things continued escalating as it brought in more Pokemon and it had to get more aggressive. And so maybe you could say that was what it was going for, but I don't know. It doesn't make sense. Even Banshee says, "Oh, he wants to take over your bodies as well." Like, I don't. What? You're You're giving us conflicting information here, Banji. Is Marshadow supposed to be this? Is Marshadow supposed to be helping Ash or actively hindering him? I don't know what your end goal here is. I am willing to lean towards the idea that Marshadow was just trying to burn up the energy and was pushed into going on the offensive because of Cross's interference and things just going higher from there, and that it maybe fought with Ash because it needed to burn up the energy and it couldn't have this energy corrupting Ash. Is pure heart. So you could argue that was the case. So you could argue that maybe that was Marshadow's end goal, but it's never outright stated and it doesn't make sense to me. As such, while Marshadow is adorable and I want a plush of that thing, seriously, hand it over, Nintendo, I want it. At the same time, I don't really understand its motivation and what it's supposed to be as the villain. Is it supposed to be a guide, or is it supposed to be or is it looking to actively corrupt Ash? I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me, and I don't think the film does a really good job at fully explaining it, so I do consider that a problem. Which brings me, and as for the second flaw in the movie, the plot. Well, the main plot for this movie is Ash and Co. reaching Ho-Oh. For me, I think a major problem with how the plot is handled is that it kind of meanders a bit here and there. As well, ultimately Ash and Co. never lose sight of wanting to find Ho-Oh for their own personal reasons. But at the same time, the film likes to go off on its side quests every once in a while, focusing on Ash and Co. as they're going off and having Pokemon battles. The rivalry with Cross, which was more plot important, I will openly admit, or focusing on Pokemon that aren't necessary for the plot, like Butterfree, or likewise running into Entei, Raikou, and Suicune. It's just at several points the film seems to meander and goes into areas that it didn't really need to focus on, having scenes that really don't add anything beyond just wasting time or having another subplot go on. It does, as such, the film does feel like it lacks a bit of focus in certain areas, which in turn does make the plot not feel as strong as it does in other Pokemon movies. With that said, this is probably my favorite Pokemon movie. Once upon a time, I thought it would be my third favorite Pokemon movie, right behind Lucario and the Mystery of Mew and Secret of the Unknown. But after watching it for this vlog, I can safely say it has gone up the ranks and is now my favorite movie, with Lucario coming in at a close second and Secret of the Unknown going into the third spot. And the reason why I think this film is probably not only one of my favorite Pokemon movies, but probably a favorite movie of mine altogether, is its heart. This film is jam-packed with so much emotion and genuine heart that you cannot help but grow attached to these characters, to their journey, to what they go through. And it is reflective in every moment in this movie. While I will criticize the lack of focus in the plot and how it tends to meander and go off in side quests, I am willing to accept that because when it comes down to it, the main focus of this movie is not on Ash reaching Ho-Oh, but it's about the journey of reaching Ho-Oh. That is the main focus of the movie. What brings this movie together and keeps the emotional core in place is not Ash and his struggles to try and reach Ho-Oh, but rather it's the struggles themselves that make the movie. All the little challenges that Ash and his friends go through, every moment that they share with each other, every frustration, every triumph, every loss, every cry, every heartwarming moment, all of these come together to make a genuinely sweet and heartfelt movie. And that's why I love it. This film is just so packed with genuine emotion, and the first time I watched it, I teared up at a few scenes. I'm not even joking. And even rewatching it for this vlog, I teared up again, because the scenes that they showcased all hit just the right spot, especially if you're a pet owner. If you're a pet owner, I think plenty of scenes in this movie are gonna hit you right in the feels, and we see stuff like that as far as early as the beginning of the third act. One of the going back to when Ash was trapped in his nightmare world, where Pokemon didn't exist. In other words, the real world. What helped bring Ash back was his connection to Pikachu. And while he said some hurtful things to Pikachu after he lost Cross, well, again, if we're gonna go back to the whole idea that Marshadow was trying to help Ash, then ultimately this world was supposed to give Ash perspective and make him realize what he truly cared about. And in this world, the only light in this world of grayscale and darkness and muted colors, the only light was the Pokemon, was Pikachu, the image of Ho-Oh. All of these things were the true light in Ash's life. And if we go operate in the mindset that Marshadow was trying to help Ash find that light, then of course these things would be there. Then of course that could only be Ash's friends, Pikachu, the Pokemon, Ho-Oh, because ultimately those are the true light of Ash's life. And I don't mean that in the sense of he wants to seek out the Pokemon, but what they represent to Ash. Going back to what Ash said at the end of the movie, how he wants to go out and battle Pokemon and become stronger because he wants to be friends with everybody, it makes sense why the Pokemon in Ash's nightmare would be the only light there is there. Because they are the true light of Ash's life. He wants to seek them out because he's curious. He wants to see what's out there, see the new sights, see the new world, make friends with as many people as he can, but basically be the best not only in terms of strength but in terms of character. He wants to be a good person, and he wants to see what can't be seen, explore the unknown. And he wants to do it with his best friends by his side. That is the true light of Ash's life, and when Ash does realize it, it's a tearful reunion. When he chases after Ash in the dream world, I was like, oh my, I could actually feel the true source of their connection, and it made me feel like my heart was being squeezed. It really was nice. And on top of that, having the next emotional moment follow this be Butterfree's farewell, I think kind of hit a little hard. I will openly admit, the stuff with Caterpie / Metapod / Butterfree, I feel was probably one of the few side plots that possibly you could have cut out from the movie. But once again, going back to how this film likes to punch you right in the heart with feelings, having the conclusion for Butterfree's arc come right after that nightmare scene, it makes Butterfree's farewell hurt that much more. Because even if we didn't see Ash actually socializing with Caterpie or Metapod or Butterfree as much as he did with Charizard or Pikachu, at the same time you saw Ash just goofing off with Caterpie, treating it like part of the family. After he caught Caterpie, we saw in part of the montage Caterpie was just chilling with Ash and Pikachu. It was considered a friend, and likewise Ash is proud of Caterpie when Caterpie grows up, when it becomes Metapod, when it becomes Butterfree. He's more than happy for it, and we see that mutual respect with Butterfree. But then likewise, what I love too is the fact when Ash says goodbye to Butterfree, it's a tearful farewell. Not just because Ash is saying goodbye to his best friend, but Ash has to actually force Butterfree to go, because ultimately Butterfree wants to go with the pink Butterfree and this flock of Butterfree, because this is technically its kind, its family. It wants to go with them, but at the same time, Ash is its trainer. Ash is its friend, and it doesn't know if it wants to abandon him or not. And so Ash initially says, "What do you want to do?" And when Butterfree has to make a choice, at first it chooses Ash. It doesn't want, because ultimately, it wants to go with the Butterfree, but Ash is its best friend, and it knows that if it says goodbye and if it leaves now, it'll probably never see Ash again. And it doesn't want that. It doesn't want to make Ash sad, and it doesn't want to see its best friend. And it doesn't want to leave its best friend. But then Ash tells Butterfree, "You should go with them. You should go with them. You should go with them. They'll take care of you. You'll be happy. You'll be free." And Butterfree hears this, and it flies off, and everybody is crying. Ash, his friends, Pikachu, even fucking Butterfree is crying. And yes, I don't remember the original Goodbye to Butterfree episode. I don't even know I watched it when I was a kid. But if it was as tearful as this episode, fuck me. It probably would hurt like hell. God damn. I just said episode. I meant movie. Like, it was just, it hurts. It hits all the right spots, but it also encompasses a lot of. But the scene also encompasses Ash's character and part of what makes him stronger and why his friendship with his Pokemon doesn't make him weak. because Ash treats them with respect. Yeah, he's the trainer and they're his Pokemon. But ultimately, Ash, the reason why Ash and Pikachu became best friends is because despite Ash's tenacity and basically his naivete, his dumbass behavior, and his desire to just jump into any situation without really thinking about the consequences, he is pure, he is good. And if someone he cares about is in danger, he will put himself in the line of fire and will make a hard sacrifice just so that someone else will be happier. And it's that same sacrifice that his Pokemon reward. Because they know that if there's ever a situation where they are in true, genuine danger, Ash will stick up for them, no questions asked. And that in turn is what makes them want to sacrifice for Ash. It's mutual respect. It's why Butterfree doesn't want to leave Ash, because it knows that Ash is giving it its freedom here. Ash is telling it, it's your choice. If you want to go, you can go. If you want to stay, you can stay. And it's basically like, well, if you're going to have me make that choice, then I want to be with you because because I know you would honor whatever my decision is. And when Ash has to sacrifice his own happiness for the sake of Butterfree and tells it and basically lovingly pushes it away as ever, and it's sweet. It hurts, and I love it. It's technically a pointless subplot, but it's a pointless subplot that hurts. Damn it. Okay, it hurts like hell, and everything all comes together in the climax of the movie. While I still don't understand what Marshallow's end goal was in the climax, the scene where Ash begs Pikachu to get into its Pokeball just so that it'll be safe hits so hard. The fact that Pikachu was ready to stand by Ash again, just like with a Spearow, even though it was not physically capable of helping him at this point, it still hits hard. And when Pikachu falters, when Ash is taking the brunt of the attack and just asks Pikachu why it won't go in its Pokeball, and you actually hear Pikachu's response, I'd almost cried. I would have cried, because that kind of connection is something you can't fake. It's why I love animals, man. Animals can give you unconditional love, and they will give it to you, no questions asked. As long as you return that love, they will happily give it back. And I'm going to be honest, I think that's the big reason why I choose you as my favorite Pokemon movie. Because it captures that emotion so well. When you see Ash, Ash and his love for his Pokemon is genuine. The love between him and his Pokemon is genuine. The connection, the tears, the heartache, all of it feels real. And this is coming from an anime where the animals all fight at the behest of the trainers and all have superpowers in order to do these things. And this movie captures that so well. That love, that connection, it's the heart of the movie. And that alone is what makes it worth it for me. It's the emotion, and that's why I'm okay with the meandering plot. Because while I will say that the plot feels like it kind of it goes off into side quests a little bit too much for my taste, these side quests actually do have a purpose. They allow you to grow attached to the characters. Not just Ash with his Pokemon, but also with Ash's companions. Verity and Sorrel, I actually think, are nice traveling companions for the movie, and they both do have their own backstories. Now, admittedly, Sorrel is given more depth than Verity, as Verity's backstory is only touched upon with only hints of what's going on with her being given. But I don't think either are bad. In the case of Verity, she admits that the reason why she's in the Kanto region and has left the Sinnoh region is because she wants to try and because she's trying to get away from her mother and prove herself as a strong trainer. As apparently her mother is considered a great Pokemon trainer, and according to Verity, nothing that she ever did was to her mom's liking. She never approved. And while Ash and Sorrel did try telling her, hey, I think if your mom saw you right now, she'd be very proud, even Verity is like, I don't know, maybe. And it's not touched on later in the movie, and we don't really have a lot of moments with it, but at the very least, I do like that they're hinting that there is something deeper there, and that ultimately, while Verity does think that she wants to get away from her mother, when it comes down to it, she does miss her, and she still loves her. So clearly her mom wasn't abusive, at least. So, because if Verity wants to go back and see her, then there clearly was some love, because there clearly was love in their relationship. Likewise, Sorrel's hits hard. Going back to how this film really likes to punch you in the heart with the connection between humans and Pokemon. Sorrel's backstory is that he came from a rich family who with his parents constantly going off traveling, and while they were gone, Luxray was in charge of protecting Sorrel. Well, one winter day, Sorrel went out on his own, and he wound up taking a tumble in a sled and was stuck outside one evening during a snowstorm. He was too weak to go back to the house, and so Luxray sought him out and basically kept him warm with its body throughout the night. And by the time that Sorrel and Luxray are found in the morning, Sorrel was okay, but his Luxray died. I'm not even joking. It fucking died. And it hurts when we see the flashback for that scene. Seeing a little Sorrel just calling out to Luxray, begging it to get back up, it's heartbreaking. And ultimately that's part of why Sorrel why Sorrel wants to study Pokemon, because he wants to help them, because his Pokemon wound up helping him, and he even admits that after Luxray he had a hard time befriending Pokemon until he met his Lucario. So yeah, it's tragic, and but again, these added layers to these characters help you grow attached to them, and it makes their journeys nice. And likewise, while Cross is an asshole, I'm never going to defend them. This guy kicked Charmander, and as I hopefully established, if you abuse an animal, you get this. Feed on it. But at the same time, and whatever. I'm sorry. I just thought of something stupid. But at the same time, when you actually do get a sense of why Cross pushes so adamantly to prove himself as the strongest, it also makes his fall a little bit more tragic. You still don't like this prick by the end of the movie. I want to stress that Cross is a dickwad who basically I think deserved to get kicked in the face. But at the same time, it does show that there are a bit more layers to him. He's not just evil he's not just a jackass for the sake of being a jackass. And it's why I think of him as a more effective antagonist than Marshadow was, as ultimately he's the one constantly challenging Ash, constantly belittling his ideology and calling him weak. But then likewise, it actually makes it more satisfying when Ash actually does beat him when they're in the Risen Mountain, when they're trying to deliver the rainbow wing to the Rainbow Rock. As at that point, everything that he believed in was thrown back in his face, and he was proven wrong. And as any insecure person wants to, he tries doubling down one last time as he tries to wrestle the rainbow wing away from Ash, because he wants to fight Ho and prove his way is better. Only for the darkness in his heart to corrupt it, and he basically gets a front row seat to his own stupidity in action as the world turns dark and his own Pokemon is turned against him. It's actually, I like that. And at the same time, this does make him better too, as we see the connection with him and his Lycanroc. So that was nice. I liked that. Yeah, so clearly he did go through his own brand of character development, and it also led to another nice scene, because in the midst of all that chaos, Cross almost took a full brunt attack from all the wild Pokemon under Marshadow's control, and guess who took the blast for him? Charizard! Yeah, Charizard may be Ash's Pokemon now, but it still remembers Cross as its original trainer. It's not going to go back to him, as once everything is said and done, it just kind of scoffs at Cross, but again, it's a nice way of showcasing loyalty. That's again like, I love animals, man. Their loyalty can be undying if you treat them right. It's again, that's why I like the movie so much, and it's part of why I like that the final battle between Ash and Ho-Oh didn't have a resolution, or at the very least, not a resolution that we saw, because ultimately the main point of this movie isn't on Ash finding Ho and beating it in a battle. It's not about Ash proving he's the best. That may be Ash's end goal, but that's not the main point of this movie. To borrow a popular phrase, it's not the destination, it's the journey. Or it's the journey, not the destination. I screwed it up. But point is, the main focus of this movie is not on Ash reaching his goals, but everything that he encounters while trying to reach his goals. The people he meets, the connections he forges, all the battles he goes through. Everything that Ash goes through in this film is the point. It's not about reaching the end of the movie. This film isn't about reaching the end and having Ash beat Ho-Oh in a Pokemon battle, or to have Ho-Oh humble Ash. It's about Ash wanting to be friends with everybody, wanting to continuing his journey so that he can make more friends, and then by the end, when he does attain his goal, what does he do? He just seeks out something else to find, because he wants to explore the unknown, and he will not stop till he's seen it all. And that is the main crux of the movie, the journey, and it's a good one. It's emotionally charged, packed, full of heart, drama, turmoil, hope, success, triumph. All of these come together to make what I consider, honestly, I think the best Pokemon movie. Now you're free to disagree with me on that. If you don't agree with me, I understand that. But for me personally, this film hit a very strong emotional point. And ultimately, and regardless of the meandering plot or the climax that I still don't think makes sense, there is a lot in this movie that I appreciate. And quite frankly, if this film can get me so choked up that I am ready to start crying, then I think it's doing something very right. And it's for that reason alone that I think that I Choose You is my favorite Pokemon movie. And if you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend it. It is very much worth watching. If you're a Pokemon fan, you will appreciate this. There are enough callbacks to the original anime that I think you will like, while at the same time still going in its own direction with Ash's story. One that I feel definitely hits all the right points and basically hits the key and basically strikes at the core of Ash's character, both in the movies and in the anime itself. So, by all means, check this film out. It is very much worth your time, and overall, I think it's just a damn good movie, and is one that I will happily say is my favorite Pokemon movie overall. So, yeah, I think that's really all I have to say. I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, I'm Samuel Johnson, and, well, we'll see if the reboot films continue striking gold, as next time we meet, we'll be seeing more of Reboot Ash's journey with The Power of Us.